It's going to be a tough one tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, 1 second here. Just get on YouTube.
Okay.
Um, okay. All right, well, everyone, holding my Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers, that is as it is known. Again, one of only my Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. It's part 29. It's probably going to part 30, part 31. I've got a lot to say over here, probably. Not a surprise, probably, for most people. So the Mishnah says, as we spoke last few weeks, in the name of Rebbe Eliezer, he said three things. Right, honor your fellow, right, to be as precious to you as your own. Do not do not be easy, or do not be easy to anger, and repent one day before your death. Right, we spoke a lot about that, about how do you know when you're going to die. Nobody knows when they're going to die. We spoke quite a bit about that. And now, the last part of the Mishnah, warm yourself by the fire of the sages, but beware lest you be burned by its embers, or the bite of a fox, sting and sting of a scorpion, hiss is the hiss of a serpent. All the words are like fiery coals. So we mentioned last week, and I guess the week before when we started this, that we mentioned like this. We mentioned that warming yourself by the fire of the sages, right, is that they can be like fire. Yeah, you got to beware. You can't take them lightly. Can't take what they say lightly, right? You shouldn't joke around with it, right? They're not necessarily your friends to joke around with, right? You probably got other people, like that. Doesn't mean, we can't have light moments. Doesn't mean that, we don't laugh or whatever. But in general, I think people have an issue. Sometimes they let their guard down, right? And when they let their guard down, what happens? People say, "Oh, he talks about this, talks about that, so I can talk to him like he's my best buddy." Right, so that's not necessarily the case. There should be a certain amount of reverence that they have. Now we mentioned before. Let's talk about this last week, but I'm going to harp on this for a second, and that is we mentioned that someone has rabbinic ordination. Now, rabbinic ordination, or smicha, as it is known, literally means to lean. It was the leaning of the hands on the animal that was done when a sacrifice was brought. But smicha now comes to mean rabbinic ordination. Now, rabbinic ordination come in different forms, right? A person can, let's say, take requisite exam on, let's say, the laws of Shabbos or the laws of kashrus, pretty in depth. Also, the laws of mourning, the laws of family purity laws, right? Some people can take exams in all of them, and some of them, get a certificate that says you passed the requisite exam. Very good. So I do think that, it is worth something. I'm not going to say it's not worth anything. Definitely worth something. The information going through is definitely, I wouldn't say it's easy material. To master the material, is not. I'm not going to say it's such it's such an easy thing. But I would say, that there are people that have it that don't use it. They don't give classes or, whatever. But it is something. I would say it is something I think good to have. I don't think there's any question. But again, people have to know what their limitations are. Right? The Mission Pirke Avos will get there when I'm about 97. Hopefully, I should be well. And that is that the Mission Pirke Avos says you got to know your place. Knowing your place means when you shouldn't answer, or you should, it's above your, it's above your pay grade, let's say. Meaning that is something beyond you, something that you need someone bigger than you to answer the question. Now, there are people with different levels of knowledge. There are people today, and again, I mentioned this before, that, that have specialties. There are people that have specialties, let's say, in the laws of Shabbos. They can answer anything about the laws of Shabbos. Or there are people who have specialties, let's say, in the laws of kashrus, or, other things. It doesn't make them an expert in everything. Now, I happen, to be close to and have learned under somebody that knows everything about everything. So you can ask him. So I've been very spoiled, right? I don't have a specific rabbi go for kashrus or for blessings or for this. I ask him anything, right? Even the laws of damages, got everything on his hand, right? You don't have, you have very few people, like that in the world. So there is what to be said. Again, I want to make clear, there is what to be said for somebody who's got knowledge in a specific area, right? There is what to be said. There is what to be said, for such a thing. But at the same time, even if they're an expert in that, things that, they can open a Mishna Berurah, right? They can, they can answer, a question of the laws of blessings, or, maybe, the laws of Shabbos. So if it's something's obvious, you can look it up so a person can answer. Usually we would say, if a person doesn't have expertise on that subject, he shouldn't answer. If it's something obvious, you can answer, right? A person wakes up in the morning, how many times you wash your hands? That a person should probably know, right? I think most people should probably know that answer, right? Or, blessing, let's say, over wine, right? That most people probably wouldn't have to look up, right? That's pretty straightforward. Now, if there are things a little more complex, right? Not everything is black and white, but let's say there's something, a little more complex. That doesn't mean, it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that a person, has the knowledge necessarily to answer it. Could be they do, right? Very well means that maybe they do, but person has to know, what their limitations are. And I see quite often, there are people that open their mouths, they shouldn't. There's just certain things they shouldn't answer because they don't know. Now, finding somebody that's well-rounded in Jewish law that can answer just about anything anywhere is very rare, right? That's pretty rare. I mean, there are people that have that type of knowledge, but it is relatively rare. But today, people are super focused, and they'll focus on one thing, or maybe they'll focus on two things. I don't know, whatever it may be. But that's what they focus on. So if it would be other questions, and they're experts in that, now, could you make the assumption they might be well knowledgeable in other things? Yes. Because if they're knowledgeable in this, why wouldn't I say they're necessarily knowledgeable in other things? Well, the question is what type of knowledge, right? What type of knowledge? There's, things been ingrained in my head for a long time, and that is try and learn everything. Try and go through the entire Talmud. How many people have gone through the entire Talmud properly? Now, you can say it can take a whole lifetime. You get people learn, 2 pages a day, Daf Yomi, they finish in 7.5 years. But again, how much in depth are they learning? Not saying anyone, against anyone who learns, Daf Yomi or whatever. But again, if you're not reviewing, you're not learning in depth, okay, you get something out of it. Not saying that's the only thing you learn. Okay. Not going to make them necessarily so rounded. They're not going to be, best rabbinical scholars in the world. But as someone sitting and learning, I think one of the problems is people don't focus. After a while, they've been learning for a long time. They don't have goals. They don't necessarily focus. But that's, that's a separate topic. So the point, the point is, I think, I mentioned one of my Q&As a while back. I think that rabbinic ordination, I think, is overrated in many ways. And I think most people don't even care. Don't even care, where you got it, or, some people have, studied longer for it, some people less. Other than, it doesn't really matter. Most rabbinical courts, if they ask, who you learned by, they're not asking to see the rabbinic ordination, right? They're not going to ask it. They're not going to be interested in it. They'll take the person at their word. They look at the resume. They see where they learned. They see who their das Torah is, who their rabbinic authority is. Who they go to. That's usually, should be enough. Now, people say, yeah, it's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing to have rabbinic ordination, etc. But again, I think most people, I'm not the only one, I think most people would say something's overrated because, at the end of the day, it means, you passed, a certain test or whatever on it. Okay. Doesn't mean that you're a world-class expert in it. Doesn't necessarily mean that, right? But you went through the material, you passed the test. Okay. Yeah. So a person could answer. They could answer different things, right? Very good. So even with that knowledge, all things being equal, people like that deserve a certain level of respect. Now, could they have greater knowledge? Yeah. Should they have greater knowledge? Probably. Well, let's say they don't. Let's say that's what they learned. They don't use it. Okay. Right. But again, as long as they're not heretics, they're not doing things against Torah or trying to lead people astray in other ways, then that should be respected. That's definitely be respected. But nobody, and I mean just about nobody's going to ask that qualification. Where'd you get rabbinic ordination from? Yeah. Now, some people who, have done this for a number of years, and have under great people of the generation. Okay. Right. So that's worth something. For sure it's worth something. Right. If someone has, let's say, they passed, one exam or two exams or whatever. Yeah. It's also worth something. Is that the same? I'm not going to say it's the same. You're not going to say it's the same. But again, what's the most important thing here besides passing the exam? Right? What's the most important thing? The most important thing is who you learn by. Who do you go to for questions? Right? So I had this, it's kind of silly when you think about it, because again, no one really questions this. Right? But I have my Rebbe's written 7 or 8 volumes of question and answers, what we call shilas and chuvas, right? Questions and answers, called chuvas v'nahagas. Anyone wants to look it up. It's got about 7 volumes there, 8 volumes there. I think 7 actually altogether. And so the 4th volume is my claim to fame. The 4th volume, in his introduction, he mentions one person helped him with the book. He mentioned my name, maybe all kinds of blessings, whatever. So that's worth something. In other words, this person who's a Torah giant of the generation, no one disagrees, right? They may disagree with some of the things he says, okay, but essentially no one disagrees. So since no one, disagrees over here, if he puts a stamp of approval and he says this person helped me, I gave him all these blessings, right? And he says the exemplary rabbi, right? That was the title, right? That was the title he gave me. Now, does that mean he's saying, you have rabbinic ordination? It's not saying that, right? He's not saying that, but what's he doing? He's giving his stamp of approval of what I do. And anyone who goes to ask him, they'll say, you can listen to him. It's fitting to give classes in public. Yeah, so that's worth something. That's even worth more than a piece of paper that says he passed his exam. That, I think, is worth more. Because we have a Torah giant who knows somebody and vouches for them. Oh, someone say, come on. He's not called, he didn't say you're a rabbi. He didn't quote you and say you're a rabbi. So what? When someone gives you a stamp of approval like that, it's worth more than anything. It's worth than anything. Even if we say, whatever, doesn't matter. That is worth something. Now, even based on that, so someone quotes you in a book, okay? Does that mean you're anything special? Depends what they say, right? Depends what they say. So in this case, my case, use myself as an example, which I often do. So if that's the case, and someone says, the Torah giant generation says, gives accolades, right? That's the English word. Gives accolades to the person that helped him. Is that worth something? It's worth something. Definitely worth something. So the first thing is that we mentioned is that, we're not here to joke around. Now, we can make jokes. We can make light of certain things, okay. But a person has to have a certain distance. There's a certain difference, certain level of respect. What's the respect? Because the Gemara says these stupid Babylonians, because I call them stupid, I'm just, rephrasing what it says. These stupid Babylonians, they stand up for a Sefer Torah. If there's a Torah scroll, someone takes it out of the ark, brings it around. Let's say you stand up for it. Why do you stand up for it? For what's written in it, for the holiness. Yeah. So the Gemara says these stupid Babylonians will stand up for a Sefer Torah. They'll stand up for a Torah scroll, but if a rabbinic scholar walks in the room, they don't stand up. They said, how could they not stand up for someone who represents the Torah? If someone represents, if the Torah itself, you have to stand up, right? Anytime it's taken out of the ark, you have to stand up till it's brought back. So someone who's a rabbinic scholar, they walk in the room, how do you not stand up for them? How do you not show respect for them? They represent what the Torah is now. Does that mean they're perfect? No. Does that mean they don't make mistakes? No. King Solomon says, there's no one been in this world, right? Essentially, that's lived in this world that hasn't sinned. Now, the Gemara says there are 3-4 people that lived in this world and only died because of the sin of Adam and Eve. Very good. Right? In other words, they didn't sin otherwise. But most people, not everybody else, everybody sins. Right? So the first thing is their knowledge should be respected. Right? It doesn't mean, first of all, it doesn't mean that they're like your average Joe. They're like the average person. Oh, you can have a beer with them. You can joke with them, whatever. Doesn't mean that. Right? Now I'll go one step further. What about people sitting and learning? They don't have the time. Right? We call overrated. They sit and learn. They're married. They're sitting and learning. Yeah, sitting and learning full time. Make it easy. Right? They're learning full time, day and night. Maybe they're doing something on the side to make money. Their spouses work, whatever it is. They also deserve respect. One of them walks in the room, should stand up for them also. Why? Because they're holding up the world. If you go back to the original, first class, we said that, we went through the whole genealogy. God gave the Torah to Moshe. Moshe passed it down to Joshua to the elders, and elders, etc., to our generation, down, generation at generation. And the Mishna Pirke Avos says over there, chapter 1, Mishna 1, says that the Torah stands on the world stands on 3 things: Torah, Avodah, Gemilut Chasadim. Right? Torah, we understand. We'll get back to that. Avodah means, what do you call it? Serving in the temple, right? Temple service. Simple explanation. And Chesed, acts of loving kindness. But essentially, we believe that if Torah is not being learned somewhere in the world goes back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, right? Which is back to the original chaos, right? Which would be bad because none of us would be here. It'd be good. Most people wouldn't have to listen to me, but nobody would be here. It's kind of like the back of that Led Zeppelin album. Anyone knows what I'm talking about, right? That chaos, so to speak, that would be bad. So the whole world, regardless of what people think, the whole world is being held up by people who learn Torah. You need people to learn Torah all the time. Yeah. So, so if that's the case, people are learning. And again, we're talking about people learning full time. People learning full time, they're holding up the world. Now, other people that are kovei itim, meaning they learn, maybe they learn in the morning, before they pray, they learn at night, whatever it is, okay. It's also worth something. They also have to learn. Not the same as someone's learning full time. If they're learning properly, it's a different issue, okay? But at the end of the day, Torah is upholding the world. So if Torah is upholding the world, people learn it, right? People learn it on a daily basis. They're learning, let's say, full time. They deserve respect. And what do people call them? Parasites. They're not doing anything for the world. They're not upholding their responsibility. Big issue here in Israel. Big issue. You can say we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything for society. Yeah, meanwhile, even at the time of King David, there was a standing army, right? You needed a standing army, but you needed people sitting and learning. Because the whole base for the strength of the army and to be successful is that you need people praying as well. You don't have it one way or the other. You don't have it, if, let's say, if there'd be a war we had Nori Batumim, right? In other words, in the time of the temple, they'd ask Cohen a question. The Urim Batumim on his breastplate would light up, and they give him an answer: yes, no, maybe, whatever the answer was, and that would be the answer. That would be the divine answer. So, if the question was, does everyone go out to war? And the answer is yes, very good. Then everybody has to go. Right? It's a very volatile issue here because, people say we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. We shirk our responsibilities, blah, blah, blah. But every generation, right? Every generation, time of King David as well. There was a standing army, but yet people weren't in the army. You had people in the spiritual army. But see, this is a very, very volatile issue because secular people say, why do my kids have to die and your kids don't? Well, in the last few months, I hate to be the burden of bad news, the number of soldiers that were killed, in Gaza were Orthodox Jews. That doesn't get any news. And you get, one of the, so-called ministers been screaming about this for a long time. Orthodox Jews died fighting to sustain this land, so to speak. They don't even come to the funeral. They don't even go to visit the family. That's how messed up it is. Now, we're not going to get into politics, right? But if there would be a war, let's make clear, if there'd be a war, that is what we call Mochemes Mitzvah. It's a war that you have to go. Everybody has to go. A person just firstly, married within the first year also has to go. Even though normally gets an exemption, you would also have to go, right? So up until what happened on October 7th, it's never been that type of war. We haven't had that type of war, right? It's been clear. Now people say, it used to be said, again, I'm not going to get into politics there, but it used to be said they don't need us. They for sure don't need us. Now it could be it's not true because Israel works now on a huge reserve system. So you need, you need people. They brought up 300,000 reserves more, during this time, right? So that might not hold water, that argument anymore. Okay. But at the end of the day, you need both, right? You need a balance, right? You need a balance. Now, that being the case, back to our topic. So, so they're looking how to get onto this because they're looking at people that sit and learn like they don't do anything for the world, right? Meanwhile, and they're getting all this money, from the government, like, guys sitting learning, all day, getting tons of money. And look at all these yeshivas and whatever, getting tons of money. It's like not even 0.25% of what the budget is. I mean, you're talking about okay, it's a significant amount, talking numbers, right? But according to what the budget is, right? I just want to harp on this for a second. And I say I wasn't going to speak about politics. Yeah, even if it's a quarter of it's a quarter of 1%. In the bigger scheme of things, it's much smaller. It's much smaller. No matter what the number is, it's a very small amount compared to the budget. Yeah. Secular students, university students, let's say better, they get 3, 4, 5 times the amount of a stipend than someone sitting and learning. No one's up in arms about that. No one's said anything about that. Why not? Because they're doing something for the world. I remember Kurt Rabbi once said, knew somebody that was, was writing a very important book on tax law. Can imagine what that's doing for the world, yeah? Writing a book on tax law. So he was getting paid to write this book. Free housing, right? Free housing, the whole 9 yards. No one called this guy a parasite. No one said, look, he's taking money he doesn't deserve. People raising money for this person or other people paying for this person to live. Nobody's saying that. They say, look, This guy's doing something for the world. He's writing a book on tax law. Beautiful. It's insane. What? That's respected. Someone sitting learning is not respected, right? I know somebody walks into a ultra-Orthodox person's home. What's the first thing most people notice? Books. Got a lot of books. Yeah. So someone makes a statement, idiot, ignoramus makes a statement and says, you can't learn all this. It's impossible to learn all this. No one can ever learn on this. So I was like, well, it's not true because there are people that know it all, right? But I wanted to say, if this person walked into a lawyer's office, they see two bookshelves, right? Two bookcases full of law books. Are they going to say, you can't learn all this? Nobody can learn all this. Go into a doctor's office, yeah? Let's say you see 3 bookcases, 4 bookcases, all these medical books. You can't learn all this. Would they ever make such a statement? Never. Never. Why? First of all, they're looking for help, whether from a lawyer or from a doctor, but forget about that. Why not? Because they respect it. They respect these people's knowledge. When it comes to learning Torah and grinding over what the commentaries say, and and your head hurting after a day of learning and whatever, or however much a person learns, they're not respecting that. They're gonna say, why should your wife work so hard, whatever? Just go out and get a job, do something for the world. Like this does nothing for the world. Yeah. So the knowledge that a person has, the knowledge that a person has, so if it's used in the right way, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, should be respected. Totally should be respected. Yeah. Now, there are people that use it for the wrong thing. And that, you can have quote unquote, ultra-Orthodox Jews that are, their brains are skewed. And what, I don't think it's the right language, but basically they're messed up in what they think, according to what they think. Someone will say, you have pick on the chief rabbi of England. Chief rabbi of England, a number of years ago, they wanted to force, religious schools to teach about homosexuality, and all that. They didn't go to the Muslims because if they went to the Muslims, they would have burned down England. Very clear. They weren't going to go to the Muslims. Muslims a number of years ago shut down France for about 3 weeks. Anyone remembers? Almost a month. Now, France is not a third world country in many ways. You got other issues, but not necessarily a third world country. So none of these countries are going to start up with these Muslims. Not going to start up with them. So the chief rabbi of England gets up and says, even though, again, it's a political position, the ultra-Orthodox don't hold to this person, not in any way, shape, or form. The only good chief rabbi of England mentioned last week was Lord Jacobowitz, blessed memory, Rabbi Jacobowitz. Everyone else, they didn't necessarily, they didn't respect. They didn't have respect for it because they said things, they did things that they shouldn't have done, right? Like someone said, how could a rabbi go to the Church of England, right? Sorry, and go into a church. That's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah. Saying, well, the king tells you to come, you got to come, even if it's in the church. Well, some would say you got to give up your life for that. Go into the king's inauguration. Yeah. Chief rabbi is going to stay somewhere on Shabbos, political position. There's that. Okay. How can you walk into a church? Jonathan Sachs walked into a church. This guy walked into a church. No permissibility for a Jew. Forbidden. Yeah. What their leniencies are, this, that, not important. Right? It's totally irrelevant here. Right? But the point is that this person's a chief rabbi. Yeah. He's not just, rabbi of a synagogue or whatever. Right? He represents English Jewry. Okay. Now, if that's the case, how in the world can he say that, for our yeshivas, we're going to teach this abomination? We're going to teach this, I said, so what's the obvious question? What do you do with Leviticus chapter 18? Leviticus chapter 18 says, homosexuality is an abomination, right? Not the person. not the person, but the act. The act itself. Someone could ask, but if they think it, but they don't act on it, okay, still bad. Right? That's still bad. If you act on it, it's worse. So what do you do with that? In other words, how do you corrupt people, so to speak, and say, yeah, it's okay. We'll teach this in our school. Now, I understand. England's giving them money, right? Government's paying them money. So, you know what they say? Baladeya, balamea. Sorry, I said it backwards. Balamea, baladeya. Person's got 100. Everyone's going to listen to him because he's got money. So they're the ones calling the shots. So you say, well, maybe it should all be private, not take money from the government. Well, isn't it a big burden to run a yeshiva? Isn't it a lot of money? Sure. Does it take all kinds of money to keep it going? Sure. Right? So the yeshiva is like a glorified fundraiser, right? In many ways. But that's what it takes. Right? That's what it takes. So, if the government's willing to help and you meet the standards, why shouldn't you take money? Very good. There's only one problem. They could stick their nose where it doesn't belong. Happened here also. Plenty of yeshivas, whatever, getting money from the government. The government said, okay, we're giving you money. We want you to do this, do that, and do the other thing. They're now threatening, again, not going to get into politics, if other Orthodox Jews don't go in the army, they're cutting off money. They're going to cut off all their money, which I already started to do. Now, that being the case, so a number of years ago, so I told my Rebbe this, that, his group, they don't take money from the government. So all their schools are privately funded. They have to go, fundraising, whatever, right? But they're privately funded. So I said, isn't this the punishment? Isn't this the punishment? People take money from the government. That's what's going to happen. The government's going to stick in their nose. He goes, you're right. Even if the government's going to stick in their nose, right? They don't have a right to. I said, but that's an end result. The end result is that they're paying and they're giving a lot of money and they're helping the yeshiva succeed, whatever, very good. But they start putting, their nose in about curriculum and other things, it gives them a right. So he says, you're right. That could be that could be an offshoot of all that. Very true. But he says, it doesn't matter, still going to protest against it. They don't have a right. Right? They still don't have a right to stick their nose in whether they take money or not. Yeah. So what ends up happening, and that's why I bring this up, not to get into politics, but it is one of my favorite subjects. But nonetheless, the issue over here is that when people come in, especially, if they're in the government, which is a whole nother story, but they're looking out for their own interests. See, you have a lot of political parties in this country, right? In Israel, that once they're in power, let's say, and they have they're part of the government, so they're looking out for their constituents. They're looking out for people that support them. Very good. So you got religious parties. Where do they want to funnel money into? Religious projects, yeshivas, helping needy brides, other things, whatever it may be, for our interest. Now, every other party also has interests, right? Don't they have their own interests? Of course they have their own interests, whatever they are. They also have their own interests, right? So why aren't these parties chastised for their interests when we get chastised for ours? And what's the answer? Because they're going to say, you don't do anything. You're useless to our society, which is totally not true because, they say, oh, you got all these people sitting and learning, nobody works. That's not true. Plenty of people work. Plenty of people paying taxes. Yeah. So that's totally not true. Right. And they're going to say, well, all these people, they don't do the army. It's also not true. Also a chunk that do the army. Right. That's for sure. Right. As much as they want. No, I wouldn't say that. But I would say very simple that, what do they want? What do they want? They want us to be like that. That's what they want. They don't just take over the burden and help us and this and that. They want us to be like that. Right? So Mary would say, we're not giving you anybody. Because that's your goal. Your goal is to uproot whatever Torah we have. So the point is, how are they looked at? how is the ultra-Orthodox community looked at? So we're looked at as a bunch of parasites. Or as they say in Hebrew, parasitim. Yeah, parasites, cockroaches, so to speak. Imagine Rebel Wine should be well. One said, you hear you hear in the news, whatever, how they speak about ultra-Orthodox Jews. Imagine if you change the name Jew, ultra-Orthodox Jew, or Haredi Jew to Arab. You would say that about the Arabs? They've been in civil war a long time ago, right? But how does it look? That's the whole thing, right? It's look really bad. Even though they're looking out for their own interests. Okay. So, when the rabbis come out and say what the Torah says and what we're supposed to do, they don't like it. They don't want to hear it. Right? So, just like the Israelis, when they had an opportunity to ransom tens of thousands of Jews during the Holocaust, they didn't. Why didn't they do it? What's the simple reason why they didn't do it? They did not want, older Jews with their old backwards, quote unquote, beliefs. They didn't want them here. They wanted these new Israelis going to be like everybody else, right? Be an Am Chofshi, be a free nation to do whatever they want, not to keep Torah mitzvahs, right? Which, again, Herzl Schmerzel, that was his big idea. Whether it was Israel, Uganda, Argentina, didn't matter. His goal was to make a nation of Jews, right? If you read the Jewish State, which I don't recommend, right? It's all heresy. But basically, if you read the Jewish State, he wanted a state of Jews. They had nothing to do with Judaism. Very little to do with Judaism. It's just, he wanted a state of Jews, so we're not persecuted all over. I mean, he had a great idea, an editorial in one of the papers in I think it was Vienna. That his great idea to save Judaism was to convert everyone to Christianity. And he had kids that did that. They were total apostates. But okay, we're not even going to get into that. But the idea is over here that, someone who's got knowledge should be respected, right? Spiritual knowledge. Now, they don't like to hear certain things. They want to be told everything they do is good. They want people to take responsibility, right? Etc. They don't want to hear it. But the problem is, you have people, I'm going to call them mediocre Jews at best, they have their own agenda. They want to push as far as they can push, to do what they want, which is bad. So if you're telling me there are people out there, let's say, we use the chief rabbi of England as a good example, someone like that, yeah? So some people say, you're speaking all this Lashon Hara against them, very good. Is that permissible? According to the Chofetz Chaim, not a problem. He's a heretic. Heretic, I can say whatever I want, when I want. There's no limitation here. I can do whatever I can, try and take away his parnasa, take away his livelihood if possible. Right? Question is how far it goes. But if a person's a heretic, I don't have to respect him. I have to respect someone who's a heretic? Why? People get caught up in this. So there are plenty of heretics out there. Plenty. And people should be warned. I don't have a problem. People warning people, saying you should listen to this one, shouldn't listen to that one. Right? Because people do. They have a big following. Yeah, that's a problem. Because somebody out there says, yeah, this, I saw this boy, he's 3 years old playing with a doll, etc. He's more feminine in different ways. Wasn't surprised he became a homosexual. Totally wasn't surprising. So the person says, I know the Orthodox are gonna, be very much against me, when I say this, but it's not his fault. This kid who ended up becoming a homosexual, it's not his fault. Whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? He's like, I know the Orthodox will be very upset with me. Yeah, because that's heresy, right? That's heresy 101. We're going to get some points, I don't know when, but we're going to get to Leviticus chapter 18. Still in chapter 17, we're going to be there for a while. But when we get to Leviticus chapter 18, we're going to get to this verse, right? We're going to get to this verse that says homosexuality is forbidden and it's an abomination. Right, so if you look at the beginning of chapter 18, which we read on the holiest day of the year on Yom Kippur, read that chapter, it's all about immorality. Right, I had someone say, "Hey, verse before, what does it tell me?" It tells me, tells me you cannot do sorcery. Sorcery is forbidden. That talks about homosexuality. So they say, so the person wants to say, yeah, homosexuality is only forbidden when it's dealt when it comes to sorcery, or when it comes to idolatry, right? Sorry, idolatry. When it comes to idolatry, yeah, it's only going to be forbidden then. So very good. So a person understands something. There's a juxtaposition of the verses. We always say there's a connection between the verses, just like in Exodus chapter 35 or 37, the beginning parts of Vayakil. It says you got to keep Shabbos, but the whole chapter before and chapters afterwards speak about the building of the tabernacle, the loops, the bars, the clasps, and all these things. Yeah. What's the connection to Shabbos? Shabbos I already find out it's forbidden. It's already forbidden in Exodus chapter 20, right? Part of the Ten Commandments. Exodus chapter 19, right? It's brought up in a number of places, right? So commentaries ask, very good. You're talking about the tabernacle, the loops, the bars, and all that. So what does that do with Shabbos? Why do you tell me all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you got to keep Shabbos? So Rashi on the spot answers, others say the same thing, because building the tabernacle, and whatever was done to build the tabernacle, all those things are forbidden to do on Shabbos. They don't supersede Shabbos. So very good. I have a juxtaposition of verses, right? We have to learn out from that. Okay, I only have one question on my case. My question on my case is Leviticus chapter 18, up until you get to the verse that talks about homosexuality. That's 22 verses or 21 verses. I got one other verse, right? One other verse says that you can't commit idolatry. So let's say it's 21 divided by 22, right? That is 95%. So 95% is 95.4, right? We'll be exact. 95.4% of the entire chapter speaking about what? Immorality. You want to tell me I got one verse out of those 22 that are talking about idolatry. And I'll grant you, I'm in a generous mood right now. I'll grant you that it's true that we have to look at juxtaposition of verses. Very good. The commentaries explain that, what that verse is doing there. But even with that, if I have 21 out of 22 verses speaking about immorality, why am I going to take Webster's 8th definition and say that's okay to look at that one verse and take the whole thing out of context? See, that's what the Christians do. They're very good at that. They're very good at plucking things out of context. Very, very good. Yeah? They get everything out of context. Oh, but there were 49 verses that speak about this. You got one verse telling me this. Okay, but that, Isaiah chapter 3, very good example. Talks about the suffering servant. Oh, it's talking about JC. Yeah, but what about chapter 52? What about chapter 51? What about chapter 50 and 49 that talk about the suffering servant? Who was that talking about? The Jewish people. Now you want to say, you got 4 out of 5 chapters. That's what it's talking about. You want to say this one's totally out of context, talking about something else? Very hard. But that's what they say. And that's what they'll believe till their dying day, unless they want to see the other evidence. That doesn't make sense logically. That's cherry picking. Okay, that's not the topic for here either. But again, the whole idea is somebody who's going to go against Torah mitzvahs or be much more lenient when they should ever be, when it's forbidden and it's heretical, it's a mitzvah to make fun of them. There's a mitzvah to mock them. There's a mitzvah to warn people. Now, when I say it's a mitzvah to do it every second of every day, I wouldn't go that far, right? You have to warn people. I think you have to warn people. My rabbi said this a couple of years ago, about the chief rabbi of England flattened this guy like a pancake, totally flattened like a pancake. He said it's a desecration of God's name. How in the world can someone who represents Jewry of an entire country, doesn't matter for the political position, and to say I would allow the curriculum to change in yeshivas and girls' schools to teach this abomination. Who are you to allow that? That goes against exactly what the Torah says. Don't you believe what the Torah says? But why is that such a severe problem of desecration of God's name? Because this person represents what Torah is. He represents Orthodox Jewry. Now, anybody wants to convert, any JITs out there, Jews in training, as I would call them, you're going to go out dressed like an Orthodox Jew. Okay, you better darn well be careful what you do. When you're representing Jewish people, it's a huge responsibility. I wish more people would take it seriously. Jews, I'm talking about born Jews, that keep Torah mitzvahs. Yeah, because they make us, sometimes they make us look bad. Somewhere, before Shabbos. So, when I go to buy certain things, so I go behind this, the side street to parks. Not always easy to park, whatever. But when you're going down like this narrow street, sometimes people are parked right on the side. So only one person go in and out at a time. Because they're gonna, they have nowhere to park or whatever. They just, get out of the car, go in and, try and go in and go out. What gives them the right? What gives them the right? Then, they're blocking people coming in and out. What gives people the right to double park? Yeah. Yeah, they're causing people to what? They're causing traffic. They're going to be there 5 minutes, 2 minutes. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You have a road, it's not so big. Yeah, you have two-way traffic. What gives you the right? What gives you the right to block up traffic? What gives you the right to cut in line? What gives you the right to do other things? Right? That can be a desecration of God's name, even not in literal sense. But it makes Jews look bad. It certainly makes Orthodox Jews look bad. Right? No question. So why don't people care about that? I can't answer. They should. Why do some people, and I mentioned this many times, why are they not careful about hygiene? I can't answer that either. Right? I mean, I have two answers. I have two possible answers. One is they were never taught this when they were younger, so it wasn't really an issue. Right? Or two, it's just not important to them. Why is cleanliness not important to them? Why is like sneezing in someone's face and not covering their mouth or whatever? Why is that not important to them? Right? My only other answer is again, either they don't know, or they're stupid. Now, again, if you learn Torah, on a regular basis, it's supposed to make you smarter. That's why, the Koreans translated the Talmud into Korean. Why? Because they see, like what the Jews have done and all that. So they think, and it is true, that's made them smarter. Right? So they also want to be smart like the Jews. So they're going to learn it. Right? They want to learn it themselves. Like, the other problems with this, whatever, without getting into. Yeah, but if you don't, if a person's learning Torah, but they're not utilizing it the way they should, they cut corners, they do other things, they drive recklessly, they block up traffic, they do other things. Yeah, that makes us look really bad. We have an obligation to be the best we can be, but other people can make us look bad. Now, that being said, okay, so people that distort Torah, you got to call them out, right? 100%, they have to be called out. That's not Lashon Hara, right? That's warning people. That for sure is warning people. Again, would I come out and say you should do it every second of every day of every class you give? I wouldn't go that far, right? I wouldn't go that far, but they have to be called out. So the years and years that a person learns, no, if they say something wrong, they say something, I'm not going to say heretical, but they say something, wrong, right? Doesn't mean they're perfect, right? A person who learned Torah under someone, that person in their eyes has to be perfect. They have to be like perfect in their eyes, otherwise can't learn Torah from them. Again, it doesn't mean, practically speaking, that they never make mistakes, right? Everyone makes mistakes, right? So to speak, right? But I would say, some people would say they'll be quick to try and find a mistake a person makes and knock them down. Now, if they're not aware of all the facts, they're missing something very good, right? So that's a different issue. Even a rabbinical court judge, right? If they miss something obvious, they got to pay because they're the ones causing damage, right? Even if they accept what this person says, but if they miss something obvious, right? So they're going to be liable, right? They're going to be liable over here. But before a person answers anything, you got to know the facts. You got to think about it. Right? Everyone's asked me a question. So I answered him. He goes, I'd ask you for an answer. I ask you to think. Think. Don't give such, don't give an answer right off the cuff. Like Like he asked me once, what'd you say in this situation? So I answered him. I said, I would say like this and like this. Yeah. So he said, just so you should know, it's one of the hardest questions I worked on. I was like, okay. But I said, that's what I would say. I looked up what he said. One of the great giants, Torah giants of the last generation, according to everybody, said exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. Yeah. Or I should say better. I said like he said. Right. So I wasn't that far off, but he went into other, a lot of other details that, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have thought about. Very good. Anyway, the point is, the point is, if a person has what to say and they have to know it, they should be respected. Now, they make a mistake. People can make mistakes. Right? I had somebody, and I won't take their questions anymore because every time they ask the questions, yeah, but this rabbi says like this. Or another rabbi says like that. So my answer was, so why are you asking me? Now, I don't say things on my own, usually. Right? 99% of the time, it'll be what other great people say. Right? I'll embellish what other great people say. I'll never say things on my own, usually. Right? And if I do, I always say, take this grain of salt, it's my opinion. Right? So I have good sources, very good sources to back up, why I'll say this, why I'll say that, or, whatever, whatever it may be. So you don't like it. Okay. Other opinions that would disagree. Yeah. All right, I'll give an example. Give one example. One example. Yeah. It's desecration of, let's say, Shabbos here in Israel, different things. Should there be protests against it? Yeah. So my Rebbe would say, yes. You protest when you can. Otherwise, you don't want to have it on your conscience, even if nobody listens. Right? So the Chazon Ish, another great, rabbis of the last generation said, that's not what we do. Yeah, that's not the way to protest. Okay. But the Pirke Avos, Rabbi Yisrael Zeb Soloveitchik of blessed memory, disagreed. He disagreed. He was also huge Torah giant. Rabbi's got many, many stories very close to him. Many, many stories. Yeah. And he and others of his stature said the same thing. Now, okay, there's a disagreement. There is a disagreement. It's no question. So a lot of rabbis, probably the majority, I would say, against what the Pirke Avos said. Against what these other great rabbis said. Okay. Now, if someone's going to ask me, they would say, what would you say? I'd say, this is what my Rebbe holds. Yeah. The majority, okay. Right? The majority going to say you should vote in an election in Israel. Majority would say because, you want to be in power. You don't want to be in the sidelines because if you're in the sidelines, it's going to be worse. Right? If you don't vote, you don't have people there. We're not getting into politics. Right? It's going to be a lot worse. True. Very true. The vast majority say you vote anyway. Okay. Rabbi would say no. Because better to be in the opposition. Why? Because what's the answer going to be to religious MKs, to religious people who are in the government, when they know for sure there's desecration of Shabbos right going on under their face, under their nose? They know that. So how they stay with the government? If it's because of money, that's pretty bad. You got to have a government, okay, but how can they take money from the government and look the other way? So Miami would say you're guilty by association. In other words, you're there and you're getting money, you're getting kickbacks, whatever you're getting from the government, 100%. They have this thing about building the the train going from, I think, Tel Aviv or Haifa to Jerusalem. And the claim was Pikuach Nefesh. You got to do it on Shabbos. It was like saving lives. Building a train is saving lives. That you could desecrate Shabbos to even build it on Shabbos? That's a big stretch. Very, very big stretch. Yeah, that's well known. It's a well-known thing that they've been doing this. So if you're an Orthodox Jew and you're attached to the government, how come you don't bring down the government? How in the world can you allow that to go on? Kickbacks? Money? Right? So I'm not going to get into that. But, my Rebbe would say, better to be in the opposition. For sure to be in the opposition. Because at that point, you're guilty by association. You're not doing it. And your family's not doing it. You don't desecrate Shabbos, very good. But if you're part of a group, if you're part of a government, so to speak, and this is what's going on, so you're guilty by association. You're 100% guilty by association. Again, people will say, isn't it worse if they weren't in the government? I would agree. It's going to be worse. No one disagrees with it. Yeah, that if they weren't, there would be, Israel would be a lot worse. It'd be much more of a secular state than it is now. Much worse. Okay. Even so, he's going to say, and people like him are going to say, you don't vote. You don't vote because it's better to be in the opposition. Otherwise, you have this on your head. Right? So, I see a lot of questions here, so I'll start to deal with them. People have a certain level of knowledge. They should be respected. 100%, they should be respected. People are very quick to say things. Very quick to say things. I've seen this. I can't even tell you how many times. They're very quick to say things without any knowledge. Without any knowledge at all. Like they're an expert. I had someone's tell me, so many kids are going off and, whatever, because, the system's too hard. We got to change system of prayer. Got to change this, got to change that. I'm like, it's not going to change. We have what to work on. It's not a question, this has been going on for hundreds of years, right? The system we have now. Now, if a person fits the system, it works like a charm. If a person struggles, okay, there are plenty of places out to deal with people that struggle. There's no question. But what are we going to be like the Reform movement? Take out all the prayers? Take out most of the prayers? Well, if you said fewer prayers with more intention, very good. So learn more about the prayers. Even if you want to pray, you want to be like a wrestler who wants to pray, I don't know, in the middle of a forest or whatever. Okay. So you can do that every once in a while. You can say your own prayers to a point. But there's fixed prayer. You got to say fixed prayer. This question comes up a lot. Keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, you got to work at it. Prayer is something you have to work on. But I will say one thing, and then I'll take questions. And that is, it comes to Shemona Esrei, silent meditation. A lot of these prayers were done by the men of the Great Assembly, 120 men of the Great Assembly. Now, 120 men of the Great Assembly, some of them were actual prophets. They were literally prophets. Yeah, not all of them, some of them, few of them. Right? So now, if a prophet tells you, this is what you have to say when you have to say it, at this particular time, and you have to be meticulous in that, aren't you going to listen to what the prophet says? I would think so. Now, people think that's too simplistic. Okay. I'm a relatively simple person. But again, if these prayers are made up, by these people of divine inspiration who could have brought people back from the dead, but the generation didn't warrant it, that means they're on a very high spiritual level, extremely high spiritual level. Yeah. You don't want to say, a lot of them weren't prophets. Okay. But let's say these are what these people are going to tell you to say. That's what you say. Now, does that mean we have to work on a lot of things? Yes. But you're going to try and fix the system? We're going to work on the system. You're going to make innovations. We'll take out this, we'll put in this, whatever it's going to be. You see what the Reform and Conservative movement did? It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. What do you decide what's important to take out? You only pray once a day? I mean, what do you do to fix it? Prayer is something the Gemara says always needs to be strengthened. It always needs to be strengthened. You got to work hard. It's not the system's fault. It's not God's fault. It's our fault. Right? We're not in tune to do what we're supposed to do. So therefore, I should cut all these corners? Yeah, questions. Let me see. There are only 25 here. Let's see. Someone says, what is the Torah giant's name? Torah giant's name, my Rebbe's name is, as I mentioned many times, put it up here. Sure, I'll be happy I'm putting this out for everybody. His name is Ramosha Sternbuch. That is who he is. You can look him up, see who he is. But he is, like I said, it's been my Rebbe. It should be well, for the last 27 years. So, but he learned under the best. The best of the last generation. He's close to the Chazon Ish, Rav Shaya Karlitz, the blessed memory, the Stipler, Chaim Kanievsky's father, Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, in connection with all the Rebbes, Satmar Rebbe, the Klosenberger Rebbe, Rav Dessler, Rav Eli Lopian. He's close to all the, right? One of the few people probably seen Rebbe Chanan Wasserman, Hashem Yikam Damo, God should avenge his blood, famous student of the Chofetz Chaim. He saw him when he was a kid. I mean, he's a giant among giants. It was like nobody like him even 20 years ago that had a connection to the previous generation like he did. Right? And this is what he heard from, people who he learned by. And the people that he saw, these were giants. These are giants. Most people today wouldn't even come up to the crust in their toenails. Not to be gross over here. Like, we're light years away from who these people are. Light years away. We need more of them. A lot of them unfortunately dying out. They're old. Right? They're much older. But at the end of the day, he saw people that were, giants among giants. Talking about the Pirke Avos, you talk about the Chazon Ish, Rav Dessler, Rav Eli Lopian. These are giants, Torah giants. No question. Compared to this generation, we're not even ants. We're less than ants, right? Compared to them. I got a lot of books I need to write about him, but only lacking three things: time, more time, and more time. Somebody asks, secular king summons you to his inauguration. Do you have to go if the king is a Russian? You probably do. You look what Achashverosh did. He had these meals for 180 days. Everybody had to go, right? So if the Jews had to go, why did they get punished? Because they enjoyed too much for being there. If you're going, you're not intermingling this and that, you're stuck there, whatever, okay. But if you're getting too much enjoyment, too much benefit, different issue. So yeah, if he's a Russia, it could be dangerous if you don't go. Right? You might have to send a representative to go, right? If you're a rabbi, let's say if you're the chief rabbi, yeah, so you might have to go, even if they're a Russian. Yeah. So, but the question is, okay, he summons you and you have to go into a church. That's a problem. So you're gonna say, but it's because nefesh. If I don't go, it's gonna look really bad. But if I do go, I'm liable for death penalty. That's pretty bad. That I'd say is pretty bad. Right? And he says you got to go on Shabbos. So, even these Rishonim, even these evil people, they do have a certain level of respect for someone who, believes in principles. This whole inauguration with the king, king's not worth very much. And the queen of England was going to die and not make him king during her lifetime, right? For sure. But he wanted to make sure, the chief rabbi had a place to stay on Shabbos so he could come within walking distance. Yeah. So again, some people would say, well, what are you going to do? Well, but the king has no power. This king has no power. It's nothing. Right? The queen also had no power. If you tell me it comes to, the king of Saudi Arabia, let's say, somebody like that, he could, put someone in jail, kill them on the spot, other things. He's got that kind of power. It's different. We don't really have real kingship today. A few places, maybe. Right? Maybe, few places maybe have that kind of, the head of state has that kind of power. But today, most people don't have that kind of power. But again, there should be a certain level of respect. But it doesn't matter if they're Russia or not. It doesn't matter if they're evil. Right? Mordechai, so the question is, very good. In the book of Esther, Mordechai says it shouldn't have gone. Right? Right? Now, he didn't say, I don't know if he said he shouldn't have gone, but he refused to bow. Now, there was a difference of opinion. Bow, Haman walked into a room, Mr. Haman himself walks in a room, everyone has to bow. Right? It was a the new idol, so to speak. Now, some people say it wasn't idolatry. Some disagreed and said they should be allowed to bow. Yeah, because it wasn't idolatry. Yeah. Now you have to understand also Mordechai, if you look at the book of Chronicles, Mordechai was not the top rabbinic authority at that time. He was like number 5 or number 4 or something like that. At the end of the book of Esther, he gets demoted. Sanhedrin pushes him out. He's part of the Sanhedrin, right? He got pushed out because he was too close to the king, and they lost respect for him. But that's what he had to do. He didn't have a choice, right? This is what happened, right? So Mordechai himself said, "Yeah, you shouldn't bow," and a lot of people were against him and said, "It's going to be worse if we don't." Now he held that was idolatry. Others held it wasn't idolatry. So if it wasn't idolatry, that they deserved, if it wasn't idolatry, okay. But the Gemara says clear, that's not why the Jews deserve to die. That's not why the Jews in Shushan deserve to be killed. Right? And the Jews everywhere else. The Gemara says clear, not because they bowed. The Gemara says clear because they enjoyed themselves too much at the meal. They had kosher food. They had kosher wine. Yeah. Of course, you probably had plenty of, modest women around and this and that. So, they got too much enjoyment. Because of that, they deserve to be destroyed. Not necessarily because they bowed. If it would really be idolatry, yeah, then everyone deserves to die. That's clear. But not everyone agreed it was idolatry, right? Not everyone agreed. He certainly held it wasn't. I mean, again, he's part of the Sanhedrin. He's not a slouch over here by any stretch. He's one of the top 5 rabbis in the world. At that time, according to the Book of Chronicles. So, but others disagree with him. Okay. But he stated clear that that wasn't the case. So they had to be liable for death penalty for something else. So it comes on the Gemara and says, what's the reason? The reason is because they got too much enjoyment from the meal. Because they got too much enjoyment, that's why they deserve to be destroyed. Someone here asked about homosexuality, that the adults make the child homosexual by labeling them. Okay. I mean, today's a whole different thing, trying to convince kids at a very young age, right? And the impact of society. But again, could the parents, and this is why you never label a child anything, because then the child's going to act it out, right? If you say, oh, this child is middle child, the middle child comes with these hang-ups and those hang-ups and different things, so the child's going to act that out, right? So, that's one thing you never want to do, right? You never want to label a child. But yeah, the parents have an influence on the child. True. Parents are the worst enemy here. I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any question. They can destroy their kids also easily. You have a parent that's too harsh, or too harsh is probably a good example. They never compliment them, always give them a hard time, whatever they do, put them down, give them no self-esteem. Could they destroy a child? Sure. Right? And it happens. It's probably going to continue to happen. You're gonna have people that do that. So yeah, so parental influence is horrific. It is absolutely horrific. What can happen? Because even though we send our kids long days at school, where does the majority of education come? And this is a whole nother different topic. I'm not necessarily going to get into, spoken about though. And that is that where do they get the most influence? From their parents. Now, we should pray our kids go to school, they don't have bad influences, right? They don't have bad influence at school, so to speak, or from bad friends or whatever. That can also happen. But where does the majority of education occur? In the house. So that's why a parent, if a kid, God forbid, goes off, parent bears some of the responsibility, a lot of the responsibility. Now you can tell me today the power of the street, power of the media. There's a lot of things that can take a kid to go off, for sure. They can have learning problems. They can have problems with the family. I mean, it can be a lot of things. But I agree 100% that you're right. Parents can have the greatest influence, for sure. But the influence of social media and the media today is huge. And our surrounding atmosphere is huge. That's why we live in our own enclaves. It's exactly why we live in our own places. So they have less of an influence. So around people that think the same way we do. Right? Person will say, I sent my kid to college, look how they came back. I'm like, what do you want? You sent them to a cesspool, in my language. You sent them to a cesspool. What do you think they're going to come out? Even the best of places. You see what's going on in college campuses around the world. Even, the best of the best. The best of the best. Paying, $100,000 a year or more. Educate your kids to be anti-Semites. Beautiful. The more intelligent you are, the more like you'll be an anti-Semite. Yeah. So, you leave your mind open till your brains fall on the floor. That's what, how can you have such intelligent people think this garbage? I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling the lies that are out there, but we're not going to go there. There's so many things people don't know. They don't really seem to care either because they're brainwashed by society, brainwashed by the media. I was just saying earlier that, it's ironic, in so many ways, people claiming what Israel's doing in Gaza's genocide. Yeah. Now, if you look at the Arabs in the last 70 years, 75 years, they've grown exponentially in Israel. They multiplied like no tomorrow. How many Jews are there in Arab countries? None. So many countries, there are no Jews. I'm not talking about like 100, 1,000. I'm talking zero. Like there's nobody left. Or barely anybody left. Anyone claiming genocide on these other countries? Anybody claiming? I don't hear anyone saying anything. Oh, but we're doing the genocide. They're doing their best not to kill civilians who are being used as human shields. What do you want? But again, this is part of war. This is what, is what's going to happen. It's sad. How many civilians got killed? How many civilians got killed in Iraq? When America went in. Anyone bat an eyelash? I don't think so. I don't think anybody cares. How many people sat there and protested and had sit-ins and what Syria did to their own people? 600,000 people they killed. Gassed their own people. Anyone say anything? Any human rights activists out there saying anything? I'll tell you one step further. How crazy this gets. Where are all the feminist groups out there against how women are treated and raped and all that? Where are all the feminist groups? What happened October 7th? You hear anything from them? Zero. Some will say that, they had a company. This is what they did. So it's revenge, whatever. Anybody? Any other nation this would happen on, they'd be jumping up and down. That's how they treat women, whatever. It's crazy, right? It's not rational, right? Anti-Semitism, understand, it's not rational. This is something that makes absolutely no sense. Doesn't make any sense. And Israel's warning people to get out and this and that. They're hiding behind human shields. What do you want? The UNRWA complained last week or a few weeks ago, it blew up this position or whatever. I don't know, one of their schools or whatever it was. They're shooting missiles from there. What do you want? So it's a military place. Right? A few years ago also, they blew up a UN school. And they're like, the UN's jumping up and down. What? Yeah. So how could you do that? What do you mean? They're using it to shoot missiles. That's not a school anymore. That's a military place. They have a right to blow it up. Any other group, any other nation doing this, they would even ask the question. Again, we'll make it very simple. Anyone living in America, if this was Texas and Mexico shooting missiles into Texas, America would have gone in there, flattened Mexico like a pancake. They would have said, that's it, no more Taco Bell, no more tacos, no more burritos. They would have flattened the place like a pancake. Nobody would have blinked an eyelash. Nobody would have blinked an eyelash. This is insane. Not rational. And now you're going to interrupt college graduations and different things because they identify with these people. For goodness sakes. So I saw something that's very, very good. Someone said, okay, all these protests and whatever, we'll exchange them to Gaza for the hostages. Then they'll see. Idiots. All of them. all of them. But again, anti-Semitism doesn't have to be rational. For sure doesn't have to be rational. So yeah, there's the power of the media, there's the power of society. This, it's what convinces people to do a lot of things. Right? That's why, it should have really anything to do with social media or any of these things. When one addresses a Jew, doesn't behave like that, it looks bad. Oh yeah, that's called desecration of God's name, according to Rashi. The end of Tractate Yuma says that. Desecration of God's name has to really be done in front of 10 Jews, technically. But Rashi says if someone's going to learn something bad, something bad because these Jews did this, that, or other thing, that's also desecration of God's name. So yeah, so a person, dresses up, like an Orthodox Jew, it's a huge responsibility. True. So someone could ask, should I dress down? Not like an Orthodox Jew, so, you don't have both ways. In other words, if you're going to look the part, you have to look the part. At some point. I'm not saying today, tomorrow, the next day, but at some point. You got to dress a certain way, you got to look a certain way. Okay. But at the end of the day, yeah, we're our own worst enemy. If we do things that shouldn't be done, no matter what other people do, if a Jew does it, it's going to make us look bad. Right? You know what they say? They say that if we say dog bites man, that's such an interesting story. If you say man bites dog, that's an interesting story. Yeah. So we're held to a much higher standard. Much higher standard. Now, we're in the news a lot more. Shouldn't be. Right? But when something happens, like an Orthodox Jew does something, okay, it's news. They commit fraud. They do other things, God forbid. They're human. They can give in to their evil inclination. Okay. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you condemn what they do, not necessarily the person. It's a big evil inclination out there for a lot of things. For a lot of things. Staying on the straight and narrow path is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. It's a lot of temptation. A lot of temptation. Out there. So we have to be impeccable. We absolutely have to be impeccable, but I would say easier said than done. Someone here says, I've heard that people purposely don't clean or sneeze on others, practicing arrogance. I don't know if I would say it's arrogance. I just think it's stupidity. I don't have a good answer for it. Yeah. Externals are what they are. Yeah, I'm not big into externals and whatever, but there's common sense. If a person has, if a person coughs, cover your mouth. Even if you're not sick, just cover your mouth. Anyone like standing in front of someone, they cough in your face? I don't think so. But you see, people do it. And they'll sneeze in front of you, they whatever. I don't have a good answer. Again, it's either people have never been taught it, the importance of it, or people are just stupid. I don't have anything. I don't think I have anything in between. I think a lot of it has to do with, with culture and how they're brought up, so to speak. So if they weren't stringent about it in the house, then as they're growing up, they're not going to get it. They're not going to see anything wrong with it. Not only that, the worst part is when other people do it. So, I won't get gross or something, but, someone's told me, 50-year-old kid, 60-year-old kid sneeze, got over everything. Like, didn't even think twice. I mean, that's kind of gross. That's kind of gross. I'm just talking about that. I'm not even talking about, whatever, taking a shower on a regular basis, being clean. I mean, whatever. These things are obvious, I would think. But not everything is obvious. But again, if you grow up with Torah and mitzvahs, these things shouldn't be an issue. Of course, you're gonna have proper manners. Of course, you're gonna eat in a normal way. Of course, you're not gonna grab food. Right? Anyone's ever been to a kiddush, right? Shabbos kiddush, you look at people like they've never eaten before. Like they haven't eaten like 3 days, sometimes. So it's like sometimes just nauseating. I remember I was at a kiddush a while ago. And one of the things, usually they have cake, they have kugels there, whatever. And so we didn't have plates. We didn't have plates or forks. And so I said to someone, I said, it's only going to be a matter of time. They put, like this plate of kugel, on the table. So I don't know, whatever. We're waiting for, for plates and forks or whatever. So I'm thinking to myself, how long is it going to take for someone just to grab a piece? Yeah. And just start eating with their hand. There's no prophecy. You don't have to respect me for that. It wasn't that long. It wasn't that long. They put it down, I would say less than a minute. Less than a minute. People, someone's already grabbing it with their hands. Okay, where their hands have been, I have no idea. Someone's gonna say, "Isn't that gross?" It's gross. You're not gonna get a piece of cocoa. You get. There's plenty. There's gonna be plenty of food out there. I can understand. Okay, cookies, not a big deal, right? Not such a big deal. A piece of cake, whatever. It's not such a big deal, per se. Depending on the piece of cake, whatever. But if they're cut up, not a big deal. Something like this, stuck your grubby hands in it. Come on, okay. Now people say, that's the way of the world. It's what people do. You go to different places, different kinds. It doesn't matter. Some people are more civilized, less civilized. Whatever it is. Comes to something like this. I'm talking about kids. Kids, different issue. Talking about adults. It's gross. No way to slice it. It's gross. So a person sees that, they get grossed out. And they're going to say, "This is how Jews act. This is what Orthodox Jews do." That's desecration of God's name. That's for sure desecration of God's name. Yeah. Not according to the literal sense, but it's definitely bad. Being abused generationally, being Jewish can really cause anxiety. Could. But again, again, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to be the best we can be. Does that mean everyone does exactly what they're supposed to do? No. The Torah says, "Don't be afraid." Right? What's the only thing you're allowed to be afraid of? The Gemara says that you're afraid you're gonna forget Torah. That's what you have to be afraid of. Anything else, you shouldn't have any fear. Well, listen, people have anxiety. Person's on a train, let's say, going somewhere. They look at someone, they look at someone, and the person starts up with them because you looked at them the wrong way. Should a person have fear of that? You mind your own business. You hope nothing happens, right? You got to be smart also. But at the same time, there are different things people have anxiety about. Anxiety can be with anything. But Torah, if a person would learn, would live and learn Torah the way they shouldn't have anxiety about anything. Anything that happens should be okay with, because God runs the world. God's in charge, right? So if God's in charge, you got to work hard, right? In this world, you got to work hard. One thing, I mentioned, and I've spoken about this before, people say, "Oh, I said this prayer so many times. I said that prayer, like my situation's worse." Yeah. I said Parshas Haman. Parshas Haman is a good thing, right? You say it every day, right? It's a good thing for Parnasa, right? Parak Shira, also, say all these things about animals and different things. Also, it's to be good for, for livelihood, for Parnasa. Say 40 days, right? It's supposed to be a big thing. So, someone says, I've been saying it for more than that, my situation is much worse. This is not an instant formula. You keep saying, my answer was, you keep saying, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep going in the right direction. But if God wants to make you suffer and wants to make it hard on you, doesn't matter what you do or what you say. You're going to be in that situation anyway. It'll change eventually. It's not going to be that way forever, even though it may look like that. But people, get this mentality out of your head. There are no instant fixes. There are no quick fixes here. Even if I say the entire book of Tehillim, entire book of Psalms every day, does that mean my material plight is going to change? Maybe it will. Maybe. Yeah. Or maybe it'll stay the same until you get the message in other ways. Maybe. But there are no instant, there's no instant success here. When it comes to learning Torah, there a quick fix to learn Torah? No. You got to sit your butt in the chair and learn. That's what you got to do. Right? Again, we'll keep this clean. You got to plug away day in and day out. You got to put in the time. It doesn't happen overnight. Sure doesn't happen overnight. You have peaks and valleys. Sometimes you're doing it at a better level, sometimes worse, sometimes, a lot of different things. And you could be at a certain level for a while until you hit certain breakthroughs. When's that going to happen? I can't answer. Right? But I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to learning, one of the most important things that goes hand in hand with learning is prayer. You need prayer. Prayer is not just something you say the words, whatever. You got to be into it. My Hasidic side here coming up. You got to be into it. You got to work at it. Yeah, you got to have a fervor. And again, that doesn't change things overnight, but they go hand in hand. My Rebbe's Rebbe Moshe Schneider, bless the memory, would say, you're not like a student here. This is not like a subject prayer. You have to be into it. You have to understand. God wants you to pray, wants to have a connection. You have to have a certain frame of mind. But if you pray good, let's say, and you're into things, your learning's different. If you're just going through the motions, so learning's like that also. They go hand in hand. But do not think and do not make the mistake because I did this, I did that, and this is supposed to happen, that's supposed to happen after 40 days, after 30 days. That's not a guarantee for nothing. Nothing. Now, it could help. Very well, it could help. Yeah, that's why a lot of people say it every day. But again, is that a guarantee? It's like I heard a great rabbi once say, right before Yom Kippur, people try and do this, try and do that, try and do the other thing. He says, I got one idea that everyone should do. It's called repentance. Tshuva. Don't look, you're going to go to this great rabbi's grave and that rabbi's grave and this and that. Repent. Work hard on yourself. There's no easy way out. There's no easy way out. You keep plugging away and God will open doors. When? Whenever he decides. But you got to keep plugging away, even if it's hard, even if it looks impossible, even if, God forbid, the Gemara Baruch says, even if the sword is against your throats. Can God have mercy? Yes. Why do things change? Why does God change it? Anyone has, as good as guess as mine. But I will say one thing. When a person shows a certain level of Mesiras Nefesh, certain level of self-sacrifice, things can change. Things can change literally overnight. Anything can change literally overnight. But just because I say certain prayers, even if I have great intention and I had great fervor and I said every word meticulously and this and that, is that a guarantee for success for what you're trying to do? No. It's a good thing. Right? It's definitely a good thing. You don't give up on it. I also say Perek Shir every day. I also say Parshas Aman every day. Does that mean my financial state is going exponentially? No. Doesn't mean that. Sometimes better, sometimes not, whatever it is. Right? You keep plugging, that's it. You keep saying, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. God's the one in charge, and that's it. Right? It's not easy, but it's not an instant thing. People should get this idea out of their head. It's not instantaneous. Right? But we always say, Yeshua Hashem K'erafai. The salvation of God can come in the blink of an eyelash. Yeah, we believe that. You got to live it. But again, it doesn't, it can happen anytime. So a person going through a rut, and this happened for 20 days, 30 days, 10 days, whatever. Does it mean it's going to continue forever? No. Does it mean it could change overnight? Sure. Does it mean it will? So I can't answer that. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Depends. Depends on a lot of different factors. But don't think there's a shortcut. We're looking for shortcuts to make life easier. If we would do what we're supposed to do at the level we're supposed to do it, you wouldn't even be asking the question. Because all our needs would be taken care of. But obviously, there's some other blocks going on. That's not. That we have to go through for whatever reason. Why is it? Most likely because of sin at some level. Yeah, but I'm trying this, I'm trying that, I'm trying that. Okay. So you keep plugging away. That's what you got to do, even if it's hard. Even if you didn't get the answer you want. Somebody asked, isn't that Hashem knows our heart, right? So if we're doing the right thing in private, yeah, but you got to do the right things in public also. Right? Sometimes people think that aren't true. That's a different issue. If now people say, oh, you're a parasite, you're this, you're that, but you're really doing the right thing, you don't have to listen to them. Bunch of crackpots. If we know we're doing the right thing and someone looks at it the wrong way, now again, it depends. We have to be impeccable, as we said. You do not want to give somebody, secular Jew, non-Jew, whatever, you don't want to give them any ammo. You don't want to give them any ammo to say anything against Orthodox Jews. None. You want to be 100% impeccable. Now, if they see something that's not your fault, that you didn't do anything wrong, and they make different conclusions, that's not your fault. But if you did something, I remember waiting for someone to get on a bus. They're looking for the bus card, whatever. So I figured, okay, I'm just gonna, bypass them and I'll get on the bus. This person hammered me. And other Orthodox Jew is like, "What's your rush?" I was like, "Well, you're not really getting on the bus, so why should I wait? I want to make sure the bus doesn't take off without me." Yeah, it could be I should have just waited. Maybe that was the message. Maybe that was the message God was giving me. Did I have an obligation? I didn't think I did. Right, guys, looking for his bus pass. Okay, so why do I have to sit there and wait? So I'll just go around it. It's a big deal. He'll get on the bus eventually, he finds it. I have to sit there and wait. Why do I have to wait? Now maybe I didn't have to wait, but obviously you get chastised. So it could be I should have waited. What I'm saying, but if somebody looks at you in a different way because of the way you're dressed, you didn't do anything wrong, right? If you're dressed properly as an Orthodox Jew, let's say, you didn't do anything wrong. Very good. So if you didn't do anything wrong, they're looking at you like you live in you came out of I don't know, wherever you came from. You came from a different planet. It's not your fault. And if they say something you look down upon you, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. If you did something wrong, that's worse. That's for sure. But if you did the right thing and someone's gonna say something against that, that's people assume things, right? It's because they assume things. Doesn't mean they're right. People assume a lot of things. I'm very quick to say that's not true. Yeah, someone made a statement against Orthodox Jews. It's like, you're saying something against me also. It's like, no, but I didn't mean people like you. If I would say that against blacks, all blacks like this, or all Indians like this, or all whatever, people would call me straight away, you're a racist. You say, no, I'll clarify what I meant. I only meant some people. Some people who do this. Some people do. When you make a blatant statement and you look down upon a whole group, I don't care why. Some person cut in line, oh, Orthodox Jews don't always push a line. That's not true. Maybe some people do. Fine. I'm not saying it's right. When you malign a whole group, that's being racist. That 100% is being racist. Oh, I'm not racist. I just disagree with what Orthodox Jews do in this way and that way. But not all Orthodox Jews do that. The majority of Orthodox Jews are honest in business, this and that. Few people that aren't, or maybe a number of people that aren't. That mean all Orthodox Jews are bad? You would get accused of being a racist if you said that against any other group. But see, we're free game. People say whatever they want because they feel they're right. Now, again, if some people did things wrong, I agree. They should be called out, no question. They should be more careful. But the problem is we're all together, right? Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Jews are intertwined. If we're all intertwined, one Jew makes everyone look bad. Secular religious doesn't matter. If they're religious, it's worse. Because we should know better. 100%, we should know better. So what a person thinks and they assume, it doesn't matter. That's not our problem. But we have to act in the right way so that, nothing should happen. People shouldn't think negative things. And if they do, and it's not your fault, so that's it. Somebody asked, how can I deal with some sort of getting exhausted from studying? Yeah, studying makes you tired. Studying is taxing on the brain. What do? Could be nourished, could be hydrated, right? Sometimes you might just have to rest from learning. Rest your brain a little bit. And, if the person's exhausted, they feel they're going to fall asleep or whatever. So you put your head down for a few minutes, right? Yeah. Take a 10-minute break or whatever. We're not machines. There are some people, the famous story of the Rogatchover, Joseph Rosen of blessed memory. He would, he would stand up learning so he wouldn't fall asleep, and he'd have his feet in cold water. He never cut his hair. So if you ever fall asleep like this, he had a cuckoo that was attached to a nail. Every time he wanted to fall asleep like this, he'd get jerked. Again, not everyone's going to do that. To stay awake. Some people, I don't know, drink a lot of coffee, a lot of soda, other things, whatever it may be to stay awake. Sometimes you just got to put your head down. But it is exhausting. Torah makes you tired, makes you weaker. Right? That's exactly what the Gemara says. So, you always have to be refreshed. So a person needs to get, enough sleep. But again, I would say a person has any other worries in their mind when you're learning Torah, then you won't be able to learn. You just, your body feels heavy. It's like eating like, a nice steak or something. Like you're tired. You're physically tired because, of what you ate. So, a lot of it has to do with, a lot has to do with what we eat also. So when people drink a lot of coffee, it's definitely not healthy, but, it keeps people awake, as well. So sometimes you just got to take a break. It's got to, rest your brain a little bit and then go back. But other times, try and do other things, try and stay awake. Again, Torah does make a person weaker. That's true. Is it possible to be a good Jew while staying out of organized religion? No. Right? Too much politics, corruption, every organized religion. Okay. So what? Judaism is the word of God. You got to keep what God says. So God passed it down to Moses. Moses passed it down to us. Right? That's like saying I can be good in my heart. That has no relevance to anything. Being good in your heart doesn't mean anything. Right? If you were to ask any madman out there, may his name may rot, whoever he may be, or yes, you would ask Stalin, or you'd ask I don't know, Gaddafi, any of these, Pol Pot, any of these madmen, yeah, they're going to think for 1 second they were bad. They're not going to think they were bad. A lot of people think they're good in their heart. There are a lot of good people out there, in theory. Pay their taxes, don't steal, don't do other things. Very good. Are they good in the eyes of God? That's what you're going to ask. Right? So if you're going to do your own thing and live in your own island, right? The Rambam says what's one of 24 things stops the person from repentance, from true repentance. That is, you live outside a Jewish community, right? If you don't keep Torah mitzvahs the way God wants, then you're nothing. You're worse than nothing. Yeah? Yeah, organized religion is politics and this and that. Okay, so what? Do you have an obligation to pray 3 times a day as a Jew? Yes. If you're a guy, yes. With a minion, yes. You have to keep kosher, you have to keep Shabbos and all this? Yes. Yeah. And that's going to make you a better person. It's going to draw you closer to God. You're right, there are issues. There are politics, there are other things. Okay, so what? That means I shouldn't keep anything? So you want to ask me the simple question, is it possible to be a good Jew staying out of organized religion? No. Impossible. It's like being on a boat without a motor, right? You're on a sailboat, no motor. You take your rudder, you throw it overboard. Where does the boat go? Goes around in circles, wherever the wind takes it. Yeah, same thing. You want to be a Jew without religion? Where are you going to go? Wherever your heart tells you. Wherever your heart tells you, that's where you're going. Yeah. Even your mind tells you something else. What's going to convince you to do anything? Nothing, right? So if you don't have quote unquote organized religion and do what the rabbis tell us to do, then you're nothing. It's not Judaism. It's Judaism made up in your own mind. That's what it is, right? But it's not Judaism. We have a disagreement between Torah giants. Very good. What's the criteria you decide who you particularly follow? So I would say like this: if you looked into the subject yourself and you came to a certain conclusion, you have a certain level of knowledge, it's one thing. Or you have guidance. If you have a rabbi, say, what should I do? There's difference of opinion. Good example, right? One example will be you have opening bottles on Shabbos, plastic bottles. Major difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities, right? So $1 million question, what should I do? Some people say it's permissible, some people say not. So, depending who you're going to learn by, who your mentor is going to be, you ask them, what should I do in that situation? If someone has a certain level of knowledge, they can do it, they can figure out themselves. They learned, right? One of my rabbis once told me, I had a certain question. He says, you learn it. Tell me what your conclusion is. You learn the sources, come back to me. And tell me what your conclusion is, and I'll tell you what I think. Yeah. But someone doesn't have that time or that knowledge, so you ask somebody. Whoever is going to mentor you, whatever, you're going to ask them. Right? They say, what should I do in this situation? Should I hold like this or hold like that? So someone's going to ask me, right? In that case, some Rebbe holds that you don't open up bottles on Shabbos. Other people disagree. Very good. So I'm holding by what he tells me to do. Let me see 1 second. Yeah, other questions. Let's see. What if the child has no life experience but finished a rabbinical school and now he thinks he's a rabbi? He has no life experience. He's gonna have a mentor. He's gonna have someone who guides them, right? Even if they finish rabbinical school and they have a degree, right? They have rabbinic ordination. Okay. Yeah, the question is how far they can use it. Today, for practical purposes, it doesn't really matter. Person wants a job teaching in school. Yeah. Should they have rabbinic ordination? Yes. I think it's a good thing. Yeah. Someone told me he's or gives class in yeshiva somewhere in the States. I asked him if he ever got rabbinic ordination. He said no. There are other people there that do have it. So it's not the end to end all, I would say. But again, if someone wants a position, be a rabbi, it's good to have, it's good to have it under your belt. But again, there's a problem because even if you pass the requisite courses, and whatever, and the person has a title, doesn't necessarily mean they can answer, every question that's out there. So again, so what it means today is that a person has certain tests. So that's what it means. And for most things today, especially in the States, probably other places also, the questions that you're going to get that a rabbi would get were probably things that you can just look up and answer that are pretty straightforward. There'll be questions here and there, maybe the laws of festivals, laws of kashrus here and there, but I don't think they'll be so intense going to make them look things up, most likely, if they have a certain level of knowledge, right? But for the most part, it's answering, I would say, relatively simple questions. So that, again, do I need ordination for that? I don't need ordination for that. You certainly don't need it. Anybody, but anybody can probably answer the question. But again, what a rabbi is just someone who teaches, right? So if you have rabbinic ordination, could he give a Gemara class? Why not? Could he give a class in Mishna? Could he give a class in Jewish philosophy? If he knows what he's doing, why not? Doesn't have to have, rabbinic ordination. Has to know what they're doing, though. They have to have knowledge. 100% they have to have knowledge. So today, passing the test, that's what it's about. You got this piece of paper, no matter what you use it for, no matter what you've done, right? But I would say the most important thing, is having somebody get guidance from. Like my Rebbe would say, if someone took a course, learn how to be a rabbinic court judge, take you a lot of years, right? It's a lot of knowledge that you have to know. So just because you pass the course doesn't mean you should be hired straight away as a rabbinic court judge. Or maybe said that should be decided by the Torah giants of the generation. Because the person to be a rabbinic court judge has to have a tremendous amount of fear of heaven. That can be measured just by passing an exam, right? That has to be assessed by people who know how to assess it, so to speak. So he's spoken about that, a number of times. Passing the bar is not the whole thing. Right? It's not the whole thing. It's who you work by. It's what's the most important thing more than passing the exam? The most important thing is shimush talmidei chachamim, right? Learning from other great rabbinic scholars of the generation, and getting guidance from them in that field. That's where the knowledge comes from. You need that other knowledge. It's true. You need that other level of knowledge as well, right? But that other knowledge combined with getting guidance, getting guidance is the most important thing. With the knowledge, you need the knowledge. For sure, you need the knowledge. So I had the merit to, I sat married once a week, for 5 years in rabbinical court. So I learned how to curse in Yiddish. That was a bonus, right? That was certainly, a bonus. But an opportunity to ask him anything about anything. How do we learn? How do we learn this? So how do we learn that? How do what do we do in this case or that case? So I answered. So he answered my questions. Answered all my questions. Right. So I have that knowledge, what he said. So if someone asks me advice, I can draw from that knowledge, not just what I know, not just the practical knowledge that I know, right? But I have practical guidance of things he told me. In this case, you would do like this. In that case, you would do like that. And that, he guided me, right? 100%. And if I had asked him a question today or tomorrow, whatever, he would guide me and say, no, don't do this, do that. Or, but what about this? What about that? What about that? I asked him all kinds of things, all kinds of questions. Just answer me straight away. Either he rejected it. He said, oh, it's a good question, but you should do like this, do like that. And that's the base, the majority of what I say and how I guide people based on what he told me and what I heard other great people say. So it's not just, oh, you pass this exam in the laws of Shabbos or the laws of Kashrus or whatever, but it's also other practical knowledge. Practical knowledge means you got practical knowledge from someone out there, someone who's an expert in that, right? Someone who can guide you, right? So everything comes out of my mouth is based on, again, what most other great people say, what other great books that I've learned, that I've drawn from. It's not my own knowledge. Right? It's not my say, oh, I think this or I think that. It's based on, it's based on a lot of things. But there's another mistake, that people make. It's like, a couple says, oh, where'd you get that from? Oh, where's this? I mean, couples learn for a long time. You draw from a lot of different things. Now, sometimes, you can't make a connection between one thing and another. Okay, but a person has to know how to do that. When a person, is learning how to learn and they pass these exams, they have certain knowledge. But I'll give an example. Somebody, I had a student that this rabbi called me, asked me about the student, whatever, and then he was asking about somebody else. Someone's like first year on the job. He came out of rabbinical school. He went to his first pulpit. He was an assistant rabbi somewhere else for a few years, and now this first pulpit himself. So he says this woman wants to convert. She's asking all these deep questions. Right? She's reading the book Derech Hashem, which I always recommend. It's a good book for why God created the world, why God created man. The difference between the world, the way it looked before Adam and Eve sinned and after. And how spiritual world works and evil inclination, blah blah blah. So start asking all these deep questions. He said, I thought it was really weird. Why are they asking me all these deep questions? So I said, what are you afraid of? These are legitimate questions. These are legitimate, these are good questions. These are basic questions that people ask. So, about life, in the bigger scheme of things, which we always speak about. So he asked me, well, what should I do? What should I do in this situation? So I said, I have a great idea. I had a great idea. He goes, what's that? I said, if your synagogue does not have the book, go out and buy the book Derech Hashem. Go out and buy the book. It's in Hebrew and English. They're both very hard to go through because it's more of a flowery, philosophical book, so not so easy to go through, right? But I said, go out and buy the book and actually learn it. That's what I told him. That was my simple advice. I said, this woman's not a crackpot. She wants to know deeper things, right? I mean, the book is very much deep in Kabbalah, okay, but I said she wants to learn deeper things. So go buy the book and actually learn it. Or listen to people give class on it. You don't blow them off and say, oh, what, this person's a fruitcake because they want to learn deeper things. It has nothing to do with that. They want to know deeper things. Right? So, I thought it was pretty good advice. I said, go buy the book. That was my advice. All right, I answered that. See other questions here. Person they study so much and forget to sleep and eat. You gotta do that also. You gotta take care of the body, right? And the more you take care of the body, the easier it is. The more energy a person has, but you have to realize also that, even so, Torah learning makes you tired, right? So you gotta take care of the body, take care of the soul. What else? Yiddish sounds like German. Yes, it does. right? That is true. Someone who understands German probably pick up a lot of Yiddish because they are similar. Let me see other questions here. Why does Hashem put divine souls in a very physical body? Because we have to live in this world. So God created a body to live in this world, right? To function in this world. The soul is in the body to essentially give the body life. So obviously, you have to take care of the physical body, you have to take care of the spiritual body. But we're limited by space and time, right? We're actually limited by time. Sorry, not necessarily by space. God's not limited by either, right? So even if we had limited physical bodies, we have, what's an obvious reason? Sure, we're limited. Can't do everything we want in this world, right? We're not God, even though we have the ability to create worlds, so to speak. I mean, not physically, but we're in a limited body. Sure, we're limited in this world, finite. Eventually, we're going to die. We have limitations. People only sometimes see what their limitations are physically when they're old, when they're much older. When they're younger, they think they can do anything. They got all this vitality, all this life, all this energy, whatever. It's going to dissipate at some point. Even though people think, fame, I'm going to live forever. They think they're going to do whatever it takes. Keep the body young. The body gets old. Once the person is born, the day the person is born, they're getting closer to the grave. Yeah. There's nothing to do to stop aging. See what happens to Walt Disney. They ever bring him out of his frozen state. Yeah. But essentially, right, we're born in this world. We're here to toil, but we're limited, right? So we're limited physically for that reason, to show we're not living here forever, right? We're occupied by things such as eating, excreting, marital relations. Why do you think? Why do you think we're limited by these things? Because we're here to sanctify the physical. Now, does the person have a nefesh behemoth, an animalistic side to them? Yes. Do we do things like animals? We eat, we drink, we go to the bathroom, we have relations, different things. Yeah, but we can take things on an animalistic side and sanctify it. The Christians would never say that, right? Because the Christians would say everything's bad. So you can't sanctify anything, right? A person's married the right time. You can bring God into this world, so to speak, because if it's done in the right way. So you can harness physical things and make them into spiritual things, right? So we have also a lot of worries. There are a lot of worries in life. Yeah, how are we going to financially succeed? Paying taxes, a lot of things. But what's the whole point? The Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, the point is you're in this world to toil, physically and spiritually. Got an evil inclination, wants to take you out of this world, right? So are we going to be thankful if we have a lot of money that God gave it to us? Are we going to be thankful if we don't have a lot of money and we struggle? That's what it's all about. What am I doing in this world? I'm here to toil. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. But we have to understand. If someone's got a lot of money and a lot of power, they don't think they're limited. You ask someone who's got a ton of money, and they got jets, and they meet with sheiks and presidents and this and that. Ask them if they think they're limited in this world. I don't think they're going to say they're limited. They can do anything. They got billions. Everything's good. I mean, they don't have setbacks and other things. But I would say, right? I would say that these people don't think they have limitations. They think they can do anything. They think they can just step on anyone and demolish anyone, whoever they think, whatever they feel. Right? It's no question. So yeah, we are limited, but we have to understand what our limitations are. We have to understand what the purpose is. Right? And the purpose of those limitations, understand that God's in charge. That's really the purpose. That whatever we do, and we can do almost anything, seemingly compared to God, we're nothing. Yeah. So we have to understand what our limitations are and what we're doing here. And that has to go through Derech Hashem. So he explains it pretty thoroughly. What else? Yeah, any other questions? Someone asked, are we required to have a year-long engagement before marrying spouse? Nope. That was done way back when for a woman to gather her dowry. That doesn't happen today. Most people, if they get engaged, probably I would say 3 months, good time. 3 months is about the amount of time it would take probably to prepare a wedding, get everything together. So a year, no. Does a year by Hasidim, it's like that. By Hasidim, I think they meet a few times, they seal the deal, and they get married like a year later. Something like that. Maybe 6 months later, a year later. I mean, I'm not Hasidic, so I can't say 100% for sure, but a lot of times like that. But in general, by ultra-Orthodox Jews outside of Hasidim, probably 3 months. That's probably 3 months. Not again by Hasidim, it's probably a year, but by everyone else, probably about 3 months. 3 months, let's say. Because it should not take a year to plan a wedding. That's not why they have a year. They have a year for other reasons, but not necessarily plan a wedding. Okay, it can take time. It can take a number of months. So it's not going to take a year, right? It's definitely not going to take a year. Usually, the average is it's about 3 months. To try and squeeze it into 2 months could be done, but that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure. So like 3 months is usually a month. Someone says, yeah, it suggests it'd be 7 years. Why 7 years? And that'd be 7 years, right? I mean, especially if someone's never been married, right? Let's say you're not gonna make the process that long. It's gonna be too hard. It's gonna be too hard. So, 3 months is probably the normal amount of time. Yeah, even with Rivka, they didn't consummate the marriage till a year later, till much longer. She was younger, right? But they didn't consummate till later. But yeah, it's different. That's a whole different. That's a whole different thing. No, that's a whole different thing. But I'm saying, in today's day and age, 3 months. 3 months is usually the amount. Even if someone's been married before, let's say, it doesn't matter. Probably, I could probably take a shorter amount of time. A shorter amount of time than 3 months. Well, whatever. I would say 3 months is probably a good amount. It's probably a normal amount. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to stop here. This is every Saturday, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. Anyone has any questions can find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, even though I'm very behind. Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Book of Leviticus, chapter 17, which we're going to speak about that tomorrow. 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.